Hello and welcome to the 49ers First and 10 podcast presented by Cisco. 10 minutes of the most up-to-date 49ers news first thing in the morning. I'm your host, Brianna McDonald, and joining me is 49ers team reporter Lindsay Polares and special guest, Minnesota Vikings on-air talent and associate producer, Tatum Everett. Tatum, thanks for joining us today.
Yes, of course. So excited that you guys are coming back to Minnesota. I feel like at some point y'all are going to have to repay the favor. We're going to have to come out there. But I feel like I always tend to see you guys in Minnesota, at least when I've been here.
This is my third season, and we've either gone preseason or regular season every year that I've been there. So it's just kind of part of the routine now. I don't hate it.
It's so funny. Well, there is like a stat 49ers fans may know, but it's not a good one. How, 7 straight losses in Minnesota, haven't won there since 1992, I think.
Yep, that's correct.
Not great. I mean, I don't even know if you guys were alive then. So, it's like we have coworkers that weren't alive then. So, it's a streak that's kind of insane when you think about the history between these two teams.
Yeah, definitely a big matchup this weekend at US Bank Stadium. But before we get into Sunday's game, it's still early in the season. Tatum, can you fill us in on where the Vikings are at following the offseason and week 1, leading them up to Sunday's contest against the Niners?
Yeah, I mean, I think like a lot of people were downing the Vikings a lot going into this season. I think in a lot of polls and critics were saying that this team is going to end in 3rd or 4th place in the NFC North. And I think when they came out and made, look, I get that a lot of people are saying it's just the Giants, but there's also last season, it was just the Buccaneers and the Vikings lost, and it was a bad start to the season. So to know that you have the reigning NFC champions and a tough schedule after that, to be able to pull off the win in week 1 against the Giants in such dominating fashion, I think is a huge momentum boost. If anything, it gave Sam Darnold the confidence in this offense. We can hate on the Giants all you want, but they've got 3 guys up front, Kayvon Thibodeau, Brian Burns, and Dexter Lawrence. Ever heard of him? It was tough, but the offensive line allowed 1 quarterback hit, 1 sack. I mean, Sam Darnold really couldn't have asked for more in that performance. And then for the defense to keep them out of the end zone, have 2 turnovers, it was just a really like total team performance that gives them the confidence going into this really, really tough game against the 49ers.
Yeah, and for the 49ers, Lindsay, the team is working off a short practice week due to their Monday night game. Then they'll be traveling to the Midwest. How is head coach Kyle Shanahan and the rest of the staff going to ensure that everyone is fresh for Sunday's game?
Yeah, so the 49ers are fortunate to be playing 6 primetime games in 2024. Obviously, to start on a Monday night game, that kind of puts you one day less to work with, one day behind, so to speak, heading into week 2. So they are combating that with kind of pulling the reins back on practice a little bit. It's not usual to see the 49ers not have multiple full speed practices within a week, but that's exactly what they're doing in order to make sure that on a short turnaround on cross country travel, because the Midwest, it's a 4-hour flight there, to make sure everyone's geared up, ready. But I think obviously coming up with a big win on Monday Night Football in the same way as Tatum mentioned, just a huge confidence boost for this team, and really just kind of starts building the momentum that you want to see for the rest of the year.
And the faithful are definitely going to recognize who's under center for the Vikings in week 2. Tatum, you just mentioned it, Sam Darnold. He's facing his former team. Tatum, has the quarterback shared what it's going to be like to go up against San Francisco's defense?
I mean, you can ask Sam a lot of questions like that. I've asked Sam a lot of questions like that, but he never puts any emphasis on where he's playing, who he's playing. It doesn't necessarily, at least when he talks to media or team reporters, I guess you could say, because I know that we're in media, but he treats it like a normal thing. I mean, I think the only thing is that he does have so much respect for San Francisco, because if you look at his history with coaching staffs, it was very rocky, and he really didn't have anyone that could build him up and believe in him and give him the opportunity to prove that he deserved to be a 3rd overall pick. He goes to San Francisco, chooses to go to San Francisco as a backup, despite being a starter for so many years, or thinking, like if you are in the first round, you should be a starter. And he learns. He learns from Brock Purdy. He is obviously learning from Kyle Shanahan and that whole staff. And so I know that he looks back very fondly on that. And I don't know if he necessarily piques the interest of Kevin O'Connell and Kwesi Adofo-Mensah if he did not take that year in San Francisco. He learned a lot, mainly to be patient, to just be the point guard of the team, which is something that I feel like Brock Purdy does as well. And I think that's had a really good effect on Sam. So it will be interesting because it is a team that knows everything about Sam. I don't know how much there is to say about that, but I think it should be pretty interesting to see.
Yeah, earlier this week, head coach Kyle Shanahan called the Vikings a well-prepared, well-coached team that plays hard. Lindsay, tell us what this challenge is going to be like when you're dealing with a physical defense and a loud stadium like Minnesota's.
Yeah, I think the loud US Bank Stadium atmosphere is something that has just been talked about over and over this week. I can also attest to this. I actually love the press box open air so you can hear the Skull chant. Like the game presentation is top tier. I'll give them that. Obviously, that does present some challenges, especially on offense. You're going to see the silent count. It's going to be necessary. Brock Purdy did talk about this in his press conference, though. I think one of the big things in this game is going to be attention to detail, execution. And we heard Brock Purdy say that some of the best executed games are in these tougher environments because you have to be on your P's and Q's because the margin for error is much smaller. Also, he said a great way to just start things off on the right foot, start fast and kind of silence those Viking fans, obviously a little bit early, obviously a lot easier to say than to do, but it's the working plan. But we've heard from multiple players, Deebo Samuel, who didn't actually play in that week 7 game last week, but he was like the atmosphere top tier. And it really is just another factor to contend with an already very physical defense that we saw really show out against the Giants in week 1.
Plus, there's going to be a Netflix reunion on the field at US Bank Stadium between Justin Jefferson, Deebo Samuel, and George Kittle. Tatum, was there anything new you learned about JJ or the Niners receivers after watching that series?
Yeah, from a JJ perspective, it was really cool to see his relationship with his family. I was lucky enough after the contract extension to sit down with the 4 of them his third brother, Ricky, wasn't there, but it was his oldest brother, Jordan, who kind of manages him, plus his mom, Elaine, and his dad. And it was really awesome to get to know them. And this was right after I'd watched part of the receiver documentary, and their family dynamic is just so interesting. I think it's the reason that he is the way he is. He's like a chill guy. Like he doesn't like to get into much. You don't hear him getting into any off-season drama or really having any type of um you know things that you talk about. Really, it's like he's just a good guy, and it was really awesome to see that it comes from such a great upbringing. I'm a little biased. I'm also from Louisiana, South Louisiana. So when I hear them talk, it just makes me feel like I'm at home. So I see that family dynamic, and I kind of relate to it in a sense that, that's just how it is down there. They're just tight knit, and that's just how, everyone from my area really is. And so it was really neat to be able to see them as like a family unit.
How sweet. Well, Lindsay, we know the bread and butter for the 49ers offense is their run game, but do you think there's a receiver who's primed to have a really big game in week 2?
I actually really loved just the balance we saw amongst all the pass catchers in week 1. There were 5 players that had 25 plus receiving yards. I do think that this might be a Brandon Ayuk week, right? He said he came out of week 1 a little bit sore, but we heard from Kyle Shanahan. We heard from him. He's feeling good, looks solid. And I think he's just needed to get the football reps right. We got that done in week 1. And I think we're just going to see more of the player we've seen the past few years. And he's going to just continue to get better and better. I think this might be a BA week. So maybe that's one of my little game predictions.
I like that. Need more fantasy.
All right.
Just kidding.
All right. That part. Tatum, before game time, any injuries on the Vikings side that fans should be aware of?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of talk about Jordan Addison, whether or not he'll be able to play. I'm pretty sure that's going to be determined a little bit more later in the week. He has been limited at practice. There are some names that popped up on the injury list. I wouldn't fear too much about them, like Brian O'Neill, Garrett Bradbury, Harrison Smith. They're on the injury report. However, Kevin O'Connell has been known to give these guys a lot of days, these veteran guys some days off, because he knows like they'll be just fine, that they take care of their bodies, they're professionals. These guys are in, Harrison's in his like 13th year, but like they're in their fourth, fifth, sixth seasons. And so they know the drill. But I think Addison is the most concerning for the Vikings right now, unknowingly if he'll be able to play. However, they're very, very confident in their group of wide receivers. It was a very intense competition for those roles, whether it's Jalen Naylor, who has been very healthy this season. You have Brandon Powell, Trent Sherfield, Tristan Jackson is someone they could elevate from the practice squad. I mean, it is going to be just fine. I do not fear, with Jordan Addison being out, that the passing attack wouldn't be as potent as it was, normally.
Are there any injuries to the 49ers that fans should keep track of?
Yeah, I think the one that's on everybody's top of mind, running back Christian McCaffrey, right? Been limited the past 2 days in practice. We're going to get the final injury report headed into the weekend later today. So I think we'll definitely have a better idea of what's going to happen with Christian McCaffrey in week 2. I think that's really the most concerning. On Thursday, we had a lot of players make their return, especially defensive lineman Yetur Gross-Matos, and then linebacker D. Winters, who've been dealing with some lingering knee and ankle injuries. So for the most part, this team is very much trending in a healthy direction. So like I said, more details on Christian McCaffrey, who's a very notable player in this organization, will come later today. I think we can feel really good about Jordan Mason, 147 yards on the ground in week 1. So I think either way, the Niners are looking in really good shape in terms of their ground game.
Tune into the Vikings 49ers contest on CBS at 10 a.m. Pacific time this Sunday. Don't forget to subscribe to First and 10 presented by Cisco for more 49ers updates, and turn on the notifications for any breaking news, Move the Chains episodes. Thanks for tuning in. Bye.